the traditional building character, aka TBC overlay. What's the purpose and what are the implications for you in terms of design, cost, timeframes, all of that fun sort of stuff if you see this overlay pop up on a property report. Now, today I thought I'd kind of go back to basics a little bit, and I wanted to talk about this TBC overlay, one of the more frequent overlays that we come across. So, like I said, let's start with purpose. In super duper simple terms, the purpose is twofold. First and foremost, the intent with this overlay is to restrict demolition, whether it be full demolition, and when I say demolition, I'm talking about removal, relocation, bulldozer coming through, they're all demolition in town planning terms. So yeah, to restrict full demolition of pre-1947 houses, and also when it comes to partial demolition, the loss of integral components. Integral components being like key features that help identify the house as belonging to a specific period. So it's those things that people like myself look at and just go, oh, that house is 1920s, or oh, pre-1911 for sure. So it's like the roof shapes, the verandas on the front, the windows, whether it's sash windows, casement windows, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, first and foremost, the primary purpose of this overlay is to restrict the loss of houses in terms of full demolition, but then the loss of integral components from a partial demolition perspective. Now, the second purpose or intent here is to ensure that any new work, whether it be to a pre-1947 house or a post-1946 house, I should say, is in keeping with the streetscape, and better still, it enhances the streetscape. So the idea here is, I always say to clients, if you're driving down the street, council doesn't want to see you go, whoa, what is that pink brick house? Instead, they want you to go, oh, cute little pre-1911 house, oh, cute little 1920s, 30s house type thing. I got a phone call coming through and it's not going to disconnect me. Cool, I'm going to keep talking. Somehow the person's got past my do not disturb. So anyway, I was saying basically driving down the street, you want it to blend in. You don't want it to be the most eye-catching, attention-seeking type thing in the house because it's going to draw attention, and attention's the best way to say it, away from the original houses in the street. Like I suggested though, better still if you can enhance those houses by adding to the traditional vibes and reinforcing and strengthening the vibes, then that's even better in council's eyes. Okay, so we've covered off the purpose now in terms of the twofold purpose. Next, let's focus on what the implications are. When it comes to the TBC overlay, there's essentially 4 different pathways you can go down. First and foremost, you can design the proposal to comply with the exemptions. Technically, they're called prescribed accepted development. I hate that term, like it's so long-winded, it doesn't actually communicate what it is. I like to be old school in my terminology and just refer to it as exemptions. So I actually show my age a little bit here because I'm like, back in my day, we used to call it exemptions. So funny, side tangent, I was talking to a town planner the other day in council who is from my era, and we were both lamenting about the fact that, oh, it should be called exemptions. Like, that's so much more straightforward. So anyway, I'm going to stick to my ground here, or hold my ground here, and call it exemptions. So first option, design to comply with the exemptions. Now, generally speaking, and it is a massive generalization, when it comes to TBC properties, and the exception is Sherwood, Bulimba, a few other areas like that, you can raise to 9.5, demolish the lower level. If it's post 46, demolish the lower level, do internal works, whether it's demolition work or building work, extend to the rear unless it's corner lot and some partial demolition on the rear. You can do carports, you can do in-ground pools. Like, there is a lot of work that can occur to these properties under the exemptions. But the minute you go and change like one itty little bitty window on the front facade, or go and put a gatehouse out the front or something small like that, yeah, you trigger a town planning application. So yeah, there's a lot you can do under the exemptions, but there's also a lot you can't do. So yeah, first option, design to comply with the exemptions, path of least resistance because you have certainty over the costs, the timeframes, because there is no cost, there is no timeframes, and you get certainty over the outcome. Most of the time though, you are going to find that you want to do something that's going to tip you over to triggering an application, especially these days with the scale of work that everyone's doing out there. So if you trigger an application, 3 different pathways you can go down. So the first one, which is the second or the fourth option, I'm confusing my numbers here. Let me stick to the original numbers. There's 4. First one is exemption. Second pathway is to go an exemption certificate. Now, you can apply for an exemption certificate if it is something that is so minor and inconsequential, like just common sense says should not trigger, and there is no accessible partial demolition. So you need to tick both of those boxes. So I'm talking a scenario where you're removing a window on the rear half of the upper level side wall, and the removal is exempt because it's demo beyond the highest and rearmost ridge. So you're removing it and you're popping in some cladding to fill in the gap, or you're putting in a new shaped window or something like that. Common sense says if you can demolish the rear half of the house and extend backwards, then changing an itty bitty window on the side should not trigger. Or a gatehouse at the front. Common sense says if you're just going to put an itty bitty little gatehouse at the front, shouldn't trigger a DA. So those situations you qualify for the exemption certificate. Now, costs, timeframes. Another example is an in-ground pool that's not in-ground, so if it's more than a metre out of the ground, which so many people won't do at the moment, extensions to the rear, they won't do a pool that's like 1.2 metres out of the ground. I get it, you don't have the pool fencing requirements then, check that with the certifier, but yeah, in theory you don't have the pool fencing requirements, which means you get a better aesthetic outcome. I understand it, but yeah, technically that's another one that triggers, and we do exemption certificates for that all the time. If it's a pool, council acknowledges that that just is absolutely ridiculous and should not trigger, and at the moment they're agreeing to waive their fees. But you still have the private town planning fees and the cost of getting some plans done up to be able to go and lodge for the exemption certificate. So I've just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Exemption certificate. Oh, but if it's not a pool, you do have council fee, which is $685. Currently, goes up at the end of financial year. So that's that second option. The third option is to lodge a town planning application, but to design the work to comply with the intent of council or what council wants to see in the area. So if you do that, you can go RiskSMART fast track process. You're probably looking at general guide 4 weeks in council at the moment. You got council's fee, which will either be $685 or $1,370 off the top of my head, depending on the scale of works. If there's accessible partial demolition, throw another $1,095 in there. Again, fees go up at the end of financial year. Use that as a general guide. But to comply with council's intent, you need to do probably 5 key things. Firstly, lightweight traditional materials, tin and timber materials, pitched roof forms, verandas on the front, recessed garages, and top-heavy designs. I was about to say bottom-heavy designs. That would be a disaster. Top-heavy designs. So some of you would have seen the video that I did on the Hamptons houses, big fat suit, costume, one of my favourite videos of all time. But long story short, in that video, basically what I said is old school houses are more Pamela Anderson houses. They're more top-heavy, old-school models, whereas the New Hamptons houses are more Kim Kardashian houses. They're more bottom-heavy. There is a very different aesthetic between a model of a Kim Kardashian and a model of a Pamela Anderson in terms of body shape. Exactly the same when you come to houses. Queenslanders are top heavy. They're single story houses typically raised up on stumps, and they don't have dominant big lower levels. Whereas again, modern houses tend to be the other way around. So yeah, tick those 5 boxes. You in theory qualify for RiskSMART. You get the faster approval through council. You don't get a fee reduction like they used to in the old days. Back in my day, we had 20 or 30% discount. Those days are gone. So I'm really aging myself or dating myself in this video, aren't I? But then the final option, the fourth option, is to lodge a normal team application and negotiate for something that doesn't tick the boxes and doesn't hit those 5 goals I just talked through. Now, in lodging an application like this, you need to have good grounds to be able to argue for the alternate solution, the performance outcome. You can't just say, I want it, and so it has to happen. You're not going to get it approved. Now, there's probably 2 key ways to go about arguing this. First and foremost, the best argument you can come up with is to say that the existing streetscape is not pristine. It's already been disrupted. Like, we've already lost verandas because they've all been enclosed, or I'm just looking around me for inspiration right now. There's big garages blocking all of the houses already. Like back in a day when council was less focused on this and it was less of a priority for the community. And I always say to people, don't blame council. They are just the messenger here. So council is basically conveying the sentiment from the public. So back in the day when the public didn't care about this stuff so much, you got away with a lot more stuff. You could rip verandas off, enclose verandas, put garages forward of houses, all of that sort of stuff. So you could basically argue that the train has already left the station, the streetscape's already disrupted. You're just doing something that's same. It's just going to blend in with everyone else. So as you're, again, driving down that street, you're not going to be like, whoa, pink brick house. You're going to be like, oh, there's another brick house. There's another brick house. Like, it doesn't jump out and it's not jarring, and jarring's the best way to say it. Now, the other way is to argue that the design feature you're proposing is actually a better outcome in terms of consistency of streetscape, retaining the focus on the old, all of that sort of stuff. So an example I'd give you here is if you're doing a carport or a garage which has a flat roof, and if that flat roof lines up with the floor structure for the house behind, well, then you could sit there and going, instead of having a big dominant gable or pyramid roof form that's sitting in front of the house, someone's just walking past my car staring at me going, what the hell is she doing? I'm going to push on. So instead of having this big gable roof form or something obscuring the view through to the house behind, you have something that kind of just blends in with the floor structure, the horizontal lines that already exist behind, and helps to open up the view lines of the house behind. So that's an example of a situation where you go, okay, technically flat roof forms, parapet roof forms don't tick the pitched roof form box that you need to go through the fast track sort of process, but it's actually achieving a better outcome for the streetscape amenity and all of that sort of stuff. You can go down the path of arguing that. Now, if you're looking at those, with the RiskSMART one, I mentioned the timeframes, costs I mentioned. So when it comes to option 4, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 months in council, depends how hard you want to fight for something or how out of the box something is. At the moment, they've really got their skates on in council, and we're seeing approvals come through in the 1 to 2 month mark, which is awesome. Absolutely love that. So yeah, 1 to 2 months slash normal times 2 to 3 months. And cost wise, same cost of the RiskSMART application. So you've got $685 or $1,370 for the building work component and $1,095 for the demolition component. Private planning fees on top of that, and then the cost of having DA plans, which are more OTT than normal construction drawings or certification drawings, to be able to lodge with council. One stage, I actually want to do a video on that, of how to create town planners' plans. I'll do that one day. Anyway, I think that covers off everything I want to talk about. We've gone through the purpose. The purpose is twofold: restrict demolition, make sure it's aesthetically in keeping with the area so it doesn't drag your attention or draw your attention away from the old cutesy houses, and if possible reinforce the cutesy character by traditional character vibes. Then we talked about the 4 pathways. You've got the exemptions, you've got the exemption certificate, you've got the RiskSMART fast track application, or you've got the normal DA. And the pathway you go depends on the scope of work. What the priority is the priority time, design, or money, because you've got different factors for each one of those. Yeah, I think that covers off everything I want to say. As I always like to say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.